Alrighty then. Greetings, Earth and Space Explorers. Welcome to Doc Waller's Earth and Space Report for Friday, December 19, 2025. I'm your host, Bill Waller, an astronomer, science educator, and communicator, coming to you on a damp and windy evening here in my hometown of Rockport, Massachusetts. These Earth and Space reports are intended to engage, inform, and inspire people like you who are curious about Earth as a planet, who care about our life-sustaining biosphere, and who wonder about the greater cosmos and all that it has fostered throughout space and time. Video recordings of these reports are archived on the Earth and Space Reports YouTube channel. They are also in regular rotation on the 1623 Studios Community Access cable television channel. I'm grateful for the continuing interest and support shown by Rockport educators and students, Cape Ann cultural colleagues, cohorts of the Gloucester Area Astronomy Club, myriad Earth and space scientists, educators and communicators, far-flung friends, family, and other curious folk. Thank you for your active participation and encouragements. This evening, I'm delighted to be hosting Dr. Mario Motta of both Gloucester, Massachusetts, and Naples, Florida. Mario is an actual medical doctor who has carved out a stellar career as a leading cardiologist. Through his work with the American Medical Association, he has spearheaded several major initiatives in public health, including a recent report to the United Nations on the detrimental effects of light pollution on human health and on the living ecosystems that sustain us. Along the way, Mario has pursued a parallel life as a pioneering astrophotographer, beginning with small telescopes equipped with film-based cameras and progressing to much larger telescopes of his own creation, along with sensitive digital cameras and the latest software to create stunning imagery of star clusters, nebulae, and galaxies. This evening, Mario will discuss the New England Starlight Conference, Worldwide Perspectives on Light Pollution. At this pivotal conference on the other side of the planet, Mario and international colleagues shared both medical, ecological, and astronomical perspectives on this man-made phenomenon, dare I say plague, along with diverse common sense ways to address it. So welcome, Mario. The Zoom platform is all yours.
All right. Pleasure to be here, as always. And many of my pictures were taken with your filters, by the way.
Yeah.
I still appreciate that. And so this, let me share, I guess. It's not there.
Mhm.
Sharon's not turned
Okay,
on
I've got
yet.
to allow. Didn't get around
Okay.
to that.
May I?
Yes, you may take three giant steps forward.
All right, let's try it again. There we go. Yeah,
Okay, we can see it.
enlarge that. There we go.
We still have the rundown of images on the
All
left-hand
right.
side.
So,
There you go.
okay.
Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. 13 months ago, I was fortunate enough to be invited to be a keynote speaker at the New Zealand Starlight Conference. Um, the I guess they have one of these every 5 years. I was asked way back in 2019, but at that time, I just couldn't take the time to go over there, which was unfortunate. But they asked again, and this time I was able to go. So uh, the purpose of this conference is to bring together people from all over the world to New Zealand at a rather remarkable place. I'll describe that briefly and get worldwide views on light pollution in different countries of the earth. My role was to talk about the human aspects. There were three speakers on human health issues, and I was the keynote speaker for that. So this is where it was. It was in Lake Tekapo, which is smack dab in the middle of the South Island and one of the darkest places I've ever been at, which was quite remarkable. And then I had the additional pleasure of being able to use a C-14 all night long
Mm.
at there, and that was quite great. So let me move along. Here is the South Island of New Zealand. And can you see my arrow? Right,
Yes.
you
It's a
okay.
little small, but fine.
Okay. So Christchurch is the one main town in the South Island. It's the administrative center and the capital. There are many smaller towns like Queenstown, which is great to visit. But Lake Tekapo, right here, and I'll move it out so you can see what I'm talking about, is the end of a long lake called Lake Tekapo, and it's a very tiny town. But the remarkable thing about it is this whole area is a dark sky preserve. I was once on the board of the IDA, the International Dark Sky,
Hmm.
back in the late, I think it was 2018 to 2022. I was on the board, and this was one of the first dark sky sites we voted on to make a national dark, or a recognized dark sky site by IDA. I've always wanted to visit it, and I was able to do it. It was great. So here is the one small concentration of buildings at the very end of the lake, and this is Lake Tekapo. There's a very small town surrounds it, and they have very strict light pollution laws. The whole area is very restricted on what lights you can put up. It's just a remarkable, beautiful place. Nice mountains. If you people remember The Hobbit, uh, it was the mountains of the South Island that we used in The Hobbit throughout the movie. And then there's this dome here, which is a little bit of a disappointment. Excuse me. There is the observatory complex up on one of these hills, but they put this observatory in the middle of town but never use it. It's actually a Warner Swasey 18-inch refractor
Hmm.
that was once in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh didn't need it anymore. The University of Pennsylvania, so the Antique Astronomical Society, of which I'm a member as well, uh, fixed it up and sent it to them because they really wanted a good observatory type telescope to attract tourists. And here it is. It's an 18-inch refractor, one of Swasey. Beautiful scope. I'm told that the views through it are great, but the way they set it up, it's basically unusable. And that's why I said it's a major disappointment. The way the floor is set up, you can't put a ladder to get up to the eyepiece.
Hmm.
Bad engineering all around. They were more concerned with the beauty of it and having people go, "Oh wow," than actually consider how it would be used at night. So the people at the Antique Telescope Society, of which I know several members, including one from Pennsylvania, who has basically spent a lot of time on this, they're quite annoyed at the way it's set up.
Hmm.
But that's not what we're here for tonight. If you leave the town and go up to one of these small mountain hills, you can get to the Mount John Observatory. And I did get to visit that. There's a 2 meter scope in this dome, and that's where most of the research is done with. The AAVSO has a 24-inch off to the right, which I'm a past president of, so I've always wanted to visit that scope. Um, but you can see why it's dark there. Just look around. There's just beautiful. That's John Hershaw, who's a professional astronomer at Christchurch, and he organizes this thing. So let me get right into the talks because it's not a travel talk that you want to hear from me. We want to talk about what people are doing. So there were, I think, 30 talks. I can't give you them all. I picked out a few that are highlights. And hopefully you'll the tourism manager and kind of an organizer for the Dark Sky site. And she gave kind of an overview of the Dark Sky Preserve. So what you see here in yellow is the Dark Sky Preserve. And if you want to put up a light bulb anywhere, they're very strict. Anywhere in there, you got to make sure it's approved and that it's fully shielded and it's the right color correlation temperature. And the result of that is most of this is a Bortle 1, and there are a couple of Bortle 2 places just immediately around a couple of concentrations. That ain't bad, Bortle 2. So it's just the sky there is unbelievable, and being southern hemisphere, doubly so because you don't get to see that very often when you live up here. I mean, after the conference was 4.5 days. And after that, a friend and I went, rented a car and we went all around New Zealand for a week and a half. It was fantastic. I missed the sheep, I got to tell you. So the Mackenzie's dark sky is the Mackenzie dark sky area. Started in 1965 with the founding of Mount John Observatory. And look at this, in 1981, they already restricted street lights to be shielded, no floodlights at all, and they limited blue. That was way ahead of everyone else in the world. I mean, 1981, light pollution wasn't even on anyone's radar. They were already acting on it for this area. They wanted to preserve the observatory. Then, because it was dark sky, uh, people started setting up tours to go view the dark sky. First one was for the Japanese market, but then it just expanded. And if you want a nice place to go visit and observe, that's one of the places. A little far away, but it's pretty remarkable. Then Southern Hemisphere's first dark sky preserve, I actually voted for that. Um, and then Dark Sky Place of the Year in '98. So it's got a nice history. Here is the 18-inch, and as you can see, they terraced the bottom, so you can't actually put a ladder, so you can't get up on it. Uh, it they keep saying they're going to fix it someday, but right now it's just a large ornament. This is what the sky does actually look like down there at the Mount John Observatory. I can attest to that since I spent a night observing. And there's a lot of astrotourism now, which people are enjoying. Excuse me. They're talking about an area outside, setting up dark sky lodging, and they plan on making this a major international tourist area, focusing on astronomy and dark sky. So next, another talk I'll share is John Hershaw himself. He's at University of Canterbury, and he's working. New Zealand already has large parts, especially in the South Island, preserved to dark sky. He wants to make the whole country a dark sky preserve, which may be a bit of a stretch, but surprisingly, he's got quite a bit of support in the New Zealand legislature, and they're thinking of making they recognize what they have, and they're thinking of making North and South Island a dark sky area, and all lights have to be fully shielded and be of the right color correlation temperature, and no uplighting anywhere. So here's some of his reasons for the petition to the government: human health, environment, waste of electricity, bad for astronomy. Basically, all the things you've heard me talk ad nauseum about. He mentioned that France, Croatia, and Chile already have fairly significant national legislation for controlling light pollution, and he wants New Zealand to follow suit. Um, we'll talk more about those later from the people who came from there. The French are surprising me. They're really progressive on this. So in 2018, they passed a law that limits light pollution. And here's what it does down below. They already made it mandatory, nothing above 3,000 for the entire country. And for the countryside, the rural areas, 2,400 or 2,700. That's really progressive if you think about it, especially when they call themselves a city of light in Paris, right? But What's interesting is one of the later talks, they want to make it stricter. They have no opposition on that. And they're trying to work out legislation that they will actually cut the light pollution in half over the next 10 years. I think that's incredibly futuristic and just I hope it passes. But if not, they already have this law on the books, which you're seeing in front of you. But they want to make it stricter and actually dial back the clock to bring the light pollution level to what they say was around the year 2000. Uh,
Mario, Mario, um, could you,
yeah,
yeah, could
you
you
froze.
go back to that slide, please? Um, and could you just define the acronym ALAN and the
Oh, sure.
temperatures? Uh,
I figure everyone here has pretty much heard me, but artificial light at night is ALAN. Okay, that's just an acronym for to describe light pollution. And CCT is color correlated temperature. The reason it's color correlated temperature is incredibly anachronistic. I don't know why the lighting industry still uses that. They should use as just a spectroscopic analysis, what you're actually getting. Instead, back in the 1800s, believe it or not, this is what it's based on. If you took a hot poker and put it in a coal stove, lit up with coal, and as it gets hotter, it would eventually glow deep red. Gets hotter, it would be orangey color, and if it gets even hotter, it would become whitish blue. Okay, so 1800 is the red, and and then if you get up to bluish, it's around 3000. Even though that's referred to in thermodynamics for the color temperature of a hot iron, they use it for light bulbs, color correlated temperature, as if it was the hot iron. It's it's absurd, but we're stuck with it because that's what they use. Okay, so 3000 is a lot. I'll show you some graphs in just a moment.
I have another question, Mario. Could
What's
you
that?
please define light trespass? What is
I'm sorry,
that?
I'm not hearing what you said.
Um, okay, I'm not muted. Could you please define light trespass? I don't know what that means.
Oh, trespass. Yeah, just
Yes.
light goes where it's not supposed to. So if your neighbor has a big spotlight and it's going in your yard and in your bedroom, that's light trespass.
Oh, thank you. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
In
One more,
France, it's against the law to do that.
one more question, Mario.
Yeah.
Can can you define the scale of where we're looking at? How many miles are we talking across? Or there's no scale. I can't tell. How big is New Zealand? How big is the place you're trying to protect the light?
Uh,
Uh, I don't know the kilometers or mile areas.
I don't recall. It's fairly big, lengthwise. I think
Is
it's
it
like
like
1,000 miles from here to up here, but I don't know the exact measurements. I'm sorry. I did when I went there. I forgot.
okay? Just I have no idea how big this is. Is it like Nova Scotia? Is it Long Island? Is it much bigger?
It's similar. It's more than just a few hundred miles. They're
Okay,
two big, really big islands. So,
sure.
anyways, here is a uh, light pollution map, which doesn't look like anything like the United States, right? Pristine sky,
hmm.
all black. I mean, we don't have anywhere in the US that's like that now. And then degraded near the horizon, we have a lot of places out west that are like that. That's in the blue. And by that just means you from here you can see light pollution of Christchurch. Again, light pollution, Milky Way lost is right in Christchurch itself. The rest of the island is pristine. It's quite remarkable. Compare that to the world. Look at Europe, United States, India, China, and Japan. We're destroying the night sky worldwide. And that was the whole point of this conference. Excuse me. So the IAU, International Astronomical Union, um, it has an who this is Chris Martin. Okay, I just realized I went off Hernshaw. I should mention who I'm talking about now. So Chris Martin described the IAU and COPUOS, which is uh, I was actually involved with that for 2 years and wrote the a good part of the human health part of it. It's a 297-page report to the United Nations, um, led by Spain. There always has to be one anchor country. It was Spain this time, and it urges and gives advice as to how to control light pollution. The UN as a whole hasn't acted on it, but it's sitting there, and it's one of the quote projects that they plan on working on. The report does more than just light pollution. It's satellite proliferation, preserving observatories, et cetera, et cetera. There are 5 parts. The part I was working on was the human health and environment. So Martin analyzed 77 countries worldwide that he could get data on as to what they're doing for light pollution. And these are the countries that have actual existing light pollution laws now. I'm surprised Mexico does too, but I'm
Hmm.
not sure how well it's being enforced. But those are the countries in the world that have light pollution laws. Taiwan does. Saudi Arabia does, believe it or not.
Hmm.
There are 52 countries with pollution laws, with at least some mention of light. Now you get quite a few more countries that do that. And efforts ongoing to protect the dark skies. The U.S. finally follows that, but we have no national law, of course. We have 22 states that have passed some laws stricter and weaker than others. But that's the worldwide aspect of that. So Spain was again the anchor country for the COPUOS report for the UN. And South Africa is trying to preserve radio signal. They have a national optical observatory, I think, run by England. So they're trying to preserve that as well. All right. So let's now go on to Europe. Jana, I got to meet and was quite impressed with her. She's a lawyer and she works for the European Union. And she gave some regulation on what the European Union is doing for light pollution. And this is her, again, I basically was given all these slides from the people who gave the talk, and I'm allowed to use them, they said. So this is Yannis' slide on the European Union. And the dark purple countries that have adopted light pollution regulations, some stronger, some weaker. For example, Italy, about half the provinces within Italy have light pollution laws, half do not. Um, France has some very strict ones. Spain is ramping it up as well. Poland is very much, she's actually from Poland, and they're planning some strict light pollution laws as well. So it's really spreading across the European Union. The one exception is this country here, Belgium.
Hmm.
Notice that it has no light pollution laws whatsoever, or even thinking of them. Philips is based there, and I think they bought off all the politicians. But if you look at all the light pollution maps, Belgium can be seen from space. I don't think there's a square inch of Belgium that's not overlit. In fact, I may go back. I went the wrong way. Hold on. Well, if you look up here, that's Belgium.
Hmm.
It's worse than any other part of Europe. But the rest of the Europeans, and eventually, I mean, that's where the European Parliament is. So eventually, hopefully, they'll overcome the Phillips being there. But they're working very much toward active light pollution laws, and I'm especially impressed with France. So there, Jana's working diligently on this. That's one of the main areas of work. Light Pollution Act to adapt to each country. They're given guidance from the European Union, and light pollution measures into an environmental framework for the entire union. Croatia has some very good laws. Germany has some very good laws, and France again has the strictest. But I don't know if you can. I mean, can you see the by decree and prevention limitation of light pollution by 2030, they want to cut the amount of light pollution in half. Ambitious target. Okay, I just find that remarkable that they're going to commit to that. But that's how advanced this is in France, and the other countries of the European Union seem to be adopting this as well. So they're going to be well ahead of it. I mean, right now they're more light polluted than most of the US, but they're working actively to fix that problem. There's a Migratory Species Act because turtles, seabirds, migratory shorebirds are all being affected by the light pollution, and that fits in with that. And then the proposed scientific white and dark sky report that I have several chapters in 2021-22 was published. I believe I've shown that to you in the past, and you can download it. So they're working for solutions to fix the light pollution problem throughout Europe. I don't want to spend too much time in anyone's talk, but her talk was very impressive. Then Ruskin Hartley, who's the current CEO of Dark Sky International, was there as well, and he gave a kind of an overview of the world as well, not specifically to the U.S. And he gave a few highlights. Here's a worldwide map. Again, Northeast, not so good, right? Compared to the West. And here's Belgium, and Milan area are the worst parts of Europe. So he points out that light pollution is doubling every 8 years, and unless we take some action, eventually no one's going to be able to see the sky, as it is since 80% of the world lives in cities and large metropolitan areas. Most of the world right now cannot see the Milky Way. All right, so you talked about the things I think you've heard quite a bit about. Light pollution leads to air pollution. You got to generate the energy, biodiversity loss, and climate change. And so the solution is simple: use responsible lighting and don't light up where you don't need it. And he pointed out the environmental detriment to light pollution, how it affects just about all amphibians, most mammals, most invertebrates, and a lot of birds. Pollinators are basically being killed off. We're in a insect apocalypse, and 40% of all the insects on Earth are gone compared to 30, 40 years ago. Just think about it. In just 30 or 40 years, we've managed to kill off one of the largest, any other phylum, and we managed to kill off 40% already. It's just beyond belief. But they pollinate our crops, so without insects, we'd be in real trouble. So here is one study. He pointed out that 1950, 50,000 moths were caught in one trap. 1979, down to 50,000, and in the year 2000, only 6,200. Just shows that, and that's over 123 nights compared to one night over here. So we're also killing birds because of the lights. They circle around bright areas and basically lose their way because they actually can see the Milky Way. They use the Milky Way. They use stars to guide themselves because a lot of them migrate at night. and aquatic ecosystems. I've used this slide in my talks here, but there's salmon that migrate up the river. Someone thought it'd be a great idea to put 4,000K lighting under the bridge so they can see it from the nearby town and think it looks neat. The problem is the salmon would not pass under the bridge. The light completely stopped them. They would not migrate up the river. So within about 3 years, the entire ecosystem collapsed, and there was only a few salmon left. Someone from University of Oregon finally figured it out. They managed to convince them to shut off the lights during the salmon runs for 2 months. They should shut it off completely. And now the salmon population is back. So things that you wouldn't expect or even ever think about. Who would have thought salmon would be affected by light pollution? But they are. They won't breed if you have light pollution in the river. It affects our crops. Here's just one example: soybean growth. Notice this is a big soybean field. All the soybeans here have ripened and ready for pickup. Here, notice the green areas. That's under streetlights. The streetlights keep the field green, but the plants never produce soybeans because they never get into, I don't know what the reason is, but specifically if they're exposed to light at night, they don't mature properly. They stay green and you get no soybeans. So farmers have finally caught on that they can't light up their soybean fields. So use light where it's needed, use it at the right level, make sure it's only where it's useful, control it, and make sure it's warm colored. It's really not a difficult problem. People always bring up safety, so he made a point about that. This is actually a slide from Florida. If you look on the left over here, you have a wall pack light, and right here, I don't know if you can see him, there's someone standing there. All you got to do is shield it, and suddenly you can see better. Too many people don't understand that very simple concept. They think if you put up a bright, glary light, you got safety. It's actually the other way around. You got to shield it and you got to use indirect lighting. And here is an example that he showed of dark sky approved lighting. Here was I think these were silos for grain, and it was all overlit. They convinced them to redo the lighting, and now it's what it looks like after the light. The ground's well lit, but you don't have that glare. So it's possible to do. All right, then Mr. Wally, a design engineer, works for a lighting company, gave some insight as to the rationale for why some lighting companies do the right thing and others don't. And he strongly in favor of proper lighting. And I will add the IES, that's the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America, which back in 2016, when I published my second AMA paper on harmful effects of LED lighting and said we should be 3,000K or lower, the IES attacked us, attacked the AMA, sent out notices saying, you're just a bunch of doctors. You don't know what you're talking about. We're the experts. Stay in your lane. You wouldn't believe it. And some of them were quite nasty. I kept a few of them just for remembrance sake. But they demanded the AMA retract its paper. Didn't ask, demanded. It was a demand letter. So I was on the Council on Science and Public Health at the time. We thought about what to do. We just said, well, we just published the paper that had 123 references scientifically showing basically every word we published. That's the only way to get it through an AMA thing anyways. You got to write it so that everything is referenced properly. So we sent a letter to the IAS and said, if you have papers that contradict anything in our paper, we'll be happy to sit down and discuss it. Send us your papers. They never sent the paper, and they stopped sending letters after that because they had nothing to show. It was all, we think we know everything, but they had no scientific papers to prove not
Mhm.
one word of the demand letter, not one. So that's how we went. And I don't have that slide on this presentation because it's not in New Zealand. But in 20, every 5 years, they publish a booklet as to proper lighting. In 2022, after years of groaning and complaining about the AMA, they quietly adopted everything the AMA did in 2016. And then just this year, actually, their October 2025 issue of their engineering magazine is devoted to dark sky lighting. Hell has frozen over. I would have never believed that, but they're 9 years behind us, but they finally caught up to where we were in 2016. So I want to give you a little bit of good news. They're no longer the boogeyman anymore. So, and this gentleman who is from New Zealand was showing why good lighting. So, if you have 16K lighting, there's hardly any blue. If you have 3000K lighting, you got this is the light you want over here. It's the warm light, and it peaks around yellow, green to red. But the way the lights are made, they always have a leak. And 3000K lighting has an intense blue leak. 2700, similar but less. 2200, even less. So here's an example of 2200 to 2700 from Tasmania. Streets are well lit, and the lights are all shielded. They don't have accidents. Safety's good. What's not to like here? It's much better lighting than we have with all the glare. Here's a walkway in Australia, in Melbourne. Proper shielding, warmer lights. It's a pleasant atmosphere. Whereas if these were 4000K lights, like the lighting industry originally wanted, it would look like a prison with harsh lighting. And he talked about spill lighting. I mean, you should put the light where you want and not contribute to sky glow. All right, so light pollution and human health. There was several speakers on that. This is Dr. Gander, and she spoke about how you need proper sleep at night. It's programmed into your genes, and you got a circadian master clock in the hypothalamus. We all know that. And she talked about the biochemistry of why you need to sleep. I mean, if you think about it, why are we designed to sleep at night? It's because the human brain does a lot of its repair function and long-term memory at night when you sleep. That's why if you don't get a good night's sleep, you tend not to remember what you did the day before. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed that, right? So if you get several nights of bad sleep, you're forgetful of things, and that memory is kind of lost. You need sleep in order to have proper memory, and so the brain functions properly. I mean, the body does a lot of repair processes at night. Um, the We, for example, produce cancer cells every day. At night, we produce T cells that identify those cancer cells, and then we produce B cells that go around and kill them after they're identified by the T cells. It's a very finely tuned mechanism that's been by evolution over 1 billion years. Otherwise, we would die in infancy of cancers. So every day we all produce a cancer cell, up to 8 or 10 actually is what is estimated. But our immune system kills them off. And without a proper mechanism of night, that's why we sleep. So the body regenerates itself at night. So it's more of the same. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but if you don't sleep, you'll be less alert, poor coordination. So, and you'll have one, and there was an interesting paper just came out a month and a half ago. that showed you have increased rates of stroke and heart attacks. It's finally proven. 88,000 people were in that study. But here, it leads, if you don't get enough sleep, you get obesity, increase in diabetes, cardiovascular disease, reduced immunity, and you die on average 5 or 10 years earlier than people who get proper sleep habits. Mental health decreases with lack of sleep. You have mood changes, depression, uh, suicide, anxiety, all go along with lack of proper sleep. So shift work, she talked a little bit about that. The World Health Organization, as far back as 2009, said shift work is likely a carcinogen because they followed a number of nurses, especially who do a lot of shift work, and they had a higher rate of cancer where all other factors were controlled for. All right, so next we move on to Alexander Tufts. He's an associate professor in neuroscience, the research, and he brought up the Nobel Prize was given to Hall, Rosbach, and Young, and that it was given to them based on the fact that they determine what the clock mechanism is in the brain, and that controls 10% of our genes. So if you want to live a healthy life, you need to avoid bright light at night, and you probably should get bright light in the daytime. So in an office building, you probably do want 3,500, 4,000 lights, but just during the daytime if you're not getting actual sunlight, because the brighter it is in the daytime, the more of a rebound for melatonin you get at night. But at night, can't have that kind of light in your house. If you got 4,000 K bulbs, take them out and destroy them now. You should not have anything higher than 22 to 2,700 in your house. And at night, you should avoid all lights at all in your bedroom. Then it was my turn to talk. And you've seen these talks before, so I'll just say here's melatonin. It's an important hormone, and it's an adjuvant to the immune system. So by that I mean it stimulates the immune system to clean up bad cells in our body. So if we all of us produce 8 to 10 cancer cells every day. It's just we divide billions of cells every single day. I mean, your GI tract is new every 3 or 4 days. Your skin is renewed every few weeks. Your the one thing that's not renewed is your brain cells and your myocardium cells. Other than that, you're not the same person you were a few months ago. But with all that division of cells, there's going to be mistakes made, and the T cells identify the mistakes. They circulate, latch on to any cell that's not recognized as you, that is abnormal, and the B cells come around and kill them. So, and then the monocytes eat them and get rid of them. It's a great system. Unfortunately, if the melatonin isn't produced, and it's not produced if you sleep in a lighted bedroom or if you have light coming in from the outside, it's diminished, then the T and B cell activity is not as strong. So if you think about it, it makes perfect sense that if you have less of these cells may slip through, escape, and become a cancer. And that's the presumed mechanism of why depressing melatonin leads to endocrine type cancers, which is breast, prostate, pancreas, etc. Here is the pathway of melatonin. I'm not going to describe it, just to say that it's well worked out at this point by the Nobel Prize winners. So here is the problem. So here is, if you look at this red line here, that's the light, 479 nanometers specifically. If you have light at 479 nanometers, it suppresses melatonin. It's completely, and it's a very narrow window of what it does. This is kind of there's new data from that came out earlier this year that shows it's very specific to that wavelength. It's not the entire blue spectrum. And the problem with LED lights is they're blue LEDs that are coated with phosphor. The phosphor, depending on how it's manufactured, absorbs the blue energy and then re-radiates it out at a lower temperature. So 2700 K LED follows this red line. This is useful light. It has a little bit of a blue peak though. But if you look compared to 5000 K, you still get this broad band of somewhat useful light, not as high as the other, but you have this intense blue spike. And that's what's bad about 4000, 5000, and even 3000 K LED. So here is the circadian rhythmicity is the IPRGC. It's a special cell in the retina that has nothing to do with vision. All our retinal cells, optic nerve goes back to the optic center in the back of your brain, right here. Excuse me. This particular cell, which is a fourth receptor in the retina, goes to the pineal gland, the thalamus, and suppresses melatonin and wakes you up by stimulating your limbic system. Makes perfect sense if you think about how we lived for the last million years in an evolutionary sense. The problem now is in the last 100 years, we have basically daylight at night screwing up the system. And then glare is worse at night for onion. Little kids, I've demonstrated that with my grandkids. They can see the Pleiades and see 7 stars, no problem. Okay, it's very easy for them. And they can see faint stars. But just point it out and they'll say, oh yeah, I see that. The older you get, the harder it is. Most people in their 60s only see 6 stars in the Pleiades. And it's not light pollution because it's bright enough. The problem is those are blue stars and they're dimmed in our lens. There's no blood vessels in the lens. That's important, obviously, or you wouldn't be able to see. So all the nutrients for the cells of the lens comes from the ambient fluid around the lens, okay, the aqueous humor. The problem is when you're young, you just got a small lens, and every year you keep growing, kind of like tree rings, more tissue. And eventually what's in the center doesn't get enough nutrients and starts dying. And when that happens in your late 40s to early 60s. When that happens, you start forming calcifications on those dead cells, and eventually it'll coalesce into a cataract. That's why the older you are, the less blue you see until the cataract's removed, and the more glare, because as the light comes in, hits those microcalcifications, it scatters, just like light scattering on dust. And that's why glare is really bad for anyone over 60 and not as bad for someone who's age 20. Here is an example. So at age 20, this is the amount of light it takes to cause disability glare. At age 60, it's about a third that. I won't get into the units. Someone from Belgium did a study with human cadaver eyes, and this is a log scale, so it's much greater than what it appears here. It's a log scale. So blue scatters quite a bit, red scatters quite a bit less. So that's why red lights don't bother you as much at night as blue lights. And it makes sense if you think of the physics of the setting sun. The blue gets scattered, and the red penetrates well into sunset. All right, so the 2009, the AMA managed to get still AMA policy. Here is a policy statement that all outdoor lighting should be shielded. 2012 did a report along with some great researchers. In this report, I was really a glorified editor, but the brains of the operation was Richard Stevens and David Blask and Brainerd from Thomas Jefferson. And we put together about light pollution up to in human health up to 2012. 2016, we produced the report that drove the lighting companies insane, and that is that we set 3,000 K or lower. And they really objected to that because they had 4,000 lights they wanted to sell. And that was the real basis of it. And they were picturing billions in profits. And I'll give you one anecdote. This came out in June. Someone gave it to the city council in Chicago because they knew they were going to be replacing all their lights with LEDs. And they had a contract with Siemens to replace 275,000 lights, basically the entire city of Chicago, with 4,000 K lights. They never quite signed it. They said, well, we'll do our own research. They sent our report along with a request for info to several universities. They all came back and said we were right. So they told Siemens, we want 3,000 K, not 4,000 K. Siemens said, we don't have 4,000. You really need 4,000 K. We don't have 3,000 K. Siemens went ahead and bought bazillion lights from China and had them in warehouses all over the country, ready to give them to every city in the country. Chicago said, no, we really want 3,000 K. They lost a $1.1 billion contract because of this one report. Needless to say, if you mention my name or the AMA to anyone at Siemens, you're not going to get a pleasant response. But all those lights that they couldn't sell were shipped to Africa, by the way, or given to small rural towns across the country that didn't know any better and didn't have true lighting advisors to the major cities. So they got rid of them, but unfortunately, they ruined parts of Africa and ruined parts of the Midwest. All right, so we already talked about melatonin. I'm going to skip. What time is it? I don't want to spend too much time on my stuff. So, immune system and cancer. We talked about that. Breast cancer. 17 studies in this meta-analysis all say the same thing. If you have one study in medicine, you say, that's interesting. We need to do a little more research. You have two or three, you said, there's something to this. When you have 17 studies that say the same thing, you call that proof. So one of the best ones was the nurses study. The nurses were followed from 89 to 2013. They studied women from the center of a city. They broke up into 5 quintiles and correlated it with satellite was like. So basically uplight going into your bedroom. And if you were in the rural area compared to the inner city had a 15% increase in breast cancer. So that was pretty dramatic. It's a well-funded study that gave good results. Again, one study you say interesting. When you have 22 studies, and this is just a sampling of them from all over the world that all say the exact same thing, anywhere from 13 to 17% increase in breast cancer, that's proof. Okay, the lighting companies tried to dispute it, saying it's all epidemiologic. Well, it's epidemiologic for lung cancer too, from cigarette smoke. Okay, you basically study epidemiology, and you have gazillion studies that show smoking is bad for you. No one doubts that. You got the same level of proof with light pollution for lung cancer and cigarette smoking. Okay, there's no reason to doubt that. There are literally thousands of studies now. And here's one of my favorites. This was in rats. So Blast from Tulane, 2011, he took what's called nude mice. It's a strain that was bred to accept transplants. And he put human breast cancer under the skin of 120 rats. The ones that had a normal daylight cycle, this is the rate of growth of that breast cancer. The ones that had only 0.02 microwatts, that's less than a nightlight you'd have in a kid's bedroom, by the way, had a slightly increased rate of breast cancer. 0.06 microwatts, that's about a nightlight that you give to your kid, had this rate of breast cancer. When you had constant light, the rate of breast cancer just literally exploded out of the poor little rat's chest. So this is a powerful study. You can't do that to human subjects and plant them with cancers. So here's your lab analysis study, but for humans, you use epidemiologic studies. Pancreatic cancer recently from Texas. Thyroid cancer also from Texas. So any endocrine type cancer is especially sensitive to melatonin suppression. And it affects cardiovascular as well. Again, there's a much better study than this slide here that just came out. Gotta read. Retina, blue light at night, what's the word I'm blocking right now? Damn it. Can't think of the right word all of a sudden. But it accelerates macular degeneration. I'm sorry. I'm getting senile myself. I need more sleep. The macular degeneration is worsened with blue light at night. All right. So then San Miguel spoke. I think he was, forget if he was, should have wrote that. I can't remember if he was from Portugal or Spain, but he discussed artificial light, dark echoes, and how it affects the environment. And is this his talk? Yeah. He discussed light pollution impacts on the environment and ecosystem. Sensitivity to blue light's conserved almost in all animals. That's because the sky's blue. It's an indicator for all animals, including humans, that it's daytime. But other species all see, some see into the infrared, like mosquitoes, and some see into the ultraviolet, like some birds. And so it's not just blue light, but for humans, we want to eliminate the blue light, and that'll help most species. Okay, I'll skip that. So artificial light screws up the daylight cycle. It's important to have good light in the daytime. I mean, if you're near a window that has daylight, you're fine. But if you're in a cubicle in the middle of a building where you don't get to see the outside light, it's good to have bright lights there, because then you want your melatonin suppressed so that it bounces back at night. But then at night, you got to have some darkness and no blue light in order to make that work. But that's how you cure this system. And it even affects the marine ecology, which most people don't even realize, but now affects 2 million square kilometers of the world's ocean. Plankton, I'll give you one example, and he gave a series of different species. But you know how we have red tide in places in Florida, especially, it seems like every year now. Now, the algae that creates red tide is feeding on the runoff from fertilizers from mostly the sugarcane industry. But there are natural things in the ocean that would eat that algae. Specifically plankton. Plankton, minimum 300 feet down. But every night, there's a huge migration. The plankton come up and eat all the algae that's been growing with sunlight during the daytime, including red tide algae. They eat it. But if you're anywhere near the shore and you have light shining into the ocean, they will not come up. They will not come up at all. They abhor light whatsoever, probably for self-preservation. Other fish will eat them. But that's one of the reasons why we're having worse red tide, believe it or not, light pollution. Who would have thought? It affects wildlife in many ways. I won't get into specifics there. And let's see, yet whose talk this was, but he was referencing a conference on Uzbekistan about migratory species and light pollution as well. All right, then Eklof spoke about bats, insects, and light pollution and how it's bad for the bats, bad for the insects, and it's affecting the normal predatory effects of bats at night. And he wrote a book called The Darkness Manifesto of why the world needs the night. I've read chapters of it. It's actually quite good. All right. And then I think this is my last one I was going to reference. The Welch and Robert Dick spoke about World Commission on Protected Areas. They're trying to get the UN to support countries to designate more dark sky areas around the world, like New Zealand's trying to do right now. And they have 16,000 members, and they're getting some inroads into a number of countries, which is a great thing to see. The world at night is something that is natural ally of them, and they image parts of the world at night. They showed some nice images. So there were, I think, 20 more talks, but you don't want to sit here till the morning. So I'll stop there and gave you a smattering of what the conference was about. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. And others who want to unmute and ask any questions, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, I want to say it's great having a medical doctor talk about this. This is a really important perspective for why we need dark skies. My question is actually going to be changing the direction a little bit. I mean, you mentioned how some people haven't even seen the Milky Way because the skies are too bright, and then there's a power failure. They see the Milky Way, and some people have actually called 911 because they didn't know what the light in the sky was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which basically leads to my question: is that it has to do with has anyone at that conference talked about the night sky being the cultural heritage of humankind,
Yes.
especially among indigenous peoples, right? Because this is actually a very important aspect that enriches our lives. So,
There are
what can
actually
you tell
three
us about that?
talks on that. One was by New Zealand Maori,
Mm-hmm.
who gave a whole night sky talk as their talk and why it was culturally important to them. There was someone from two African countries, trying to remember which one, but both of them. One was South Africa. I can't remember what the second one was, but they both of them spoke about cultural heritage. And then there was this talk about uh, worldwide cultural areas. So yes, that was discussed. It was a whole section. So, but I have limited time here.
Right, right,
Bill warned me not to go overtime.
right. Well, I just wanted to say your talk was very interesting. A lot of interesting information in there. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Artie.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Obviously, very illuminating. I was
Har.
just
Data pun.
I was kind of pondering. Um, oh man, I even forgot the question at this point.
Oh.
That's how easy. You think you're going senile? No, I've actually seen your name referenced a few times in the astronomy sky and telescope magazines that I'm reading. So your work is appreciated in print quite often.
Actually, hold that thought 1 second. I got to show you one thing.
Sure.
You must have something new.
He's got another toy, no doubt.
I got 3 publications this year, and this just came in my mailbox today. And I have an
Certainly
article in here on why light pollution is bad for your health. So I got
appropriate again. Listen, I got the question. You're actually fighting a two-front war. You got the stuff going on the ground, and then you got all the sky satellite launches that are interfering with tracking and photographing the sky. Isn't that frustrating to you? You got satellites that are
you're
interfering
frozen right now.
with your
So repeat
astronomy.
what you just said because you were frozen for a minute.
Oh, you must be frustrated with having to defend the skies from the ground, but then your astronomy is affected by all the satellites now. Is that a frustration to you?
I can't mention Elon Musk without getting profane, so I'll let that pass.
Let it go. I hear you.
Let's
Uh,
just say that
It's also it's also it's
I
also
cannot
Amazon,
take a
right?
sub
Amazon
image.
too, right?
Yeah, I cannot take a 5 minute sub image almost never without getting a satellite drill these days.
wow.
And that's only with there's 12,000 satellites right now, 9,000 of which are Elon's. He wants 56,000 himself.
Yeah, that number scared the crap out of me when I heard it.
Okay. Yeah, but it's even worse because China wants to match his. They want their own
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
England has a company that wants to do about 20,000 satellites. And there are a couple of others, independents, like there's this company in California, believe it or not, that wants to put reflectors and sell sunlight at night to anyone who
yeah.
wants to buy it.
I heard about
I
that
mean,
too.
Heard about that.
if this trend is allowed in about 10, 15 years, you will never see the sky again.
It is a frustrating example of where things can go when there is really no limit and no governance of it. I know you're fighting a good fight. Thank you so much for your efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question that goes back to the insects, and you mentioned the insect apocalypse. But could you just kind of describe the mechanism that that connects light pollution with the serious decline in insects?
Yeah, it's more complicated than just lights. I mean, there's quite a bit of insecticide going
Hmm.
that's used as well, of course. But light pollution affects them even when there isn't insecticide. So moths are attracted to lights. That's
Hmm.
why your grandmother used to use a yellow light, right? They never used a white light because it would attract all the insects.
Hmm.
Okay, and what is a yellow light? Basically, it's an 1800 CCT light.
Hmm.
So if you want to use a porch light, that would be the right light. Your grandmother was correct. Follow her example. Um, but it was interesting. I gave a talk a couple of years back, and the speaker just before me was an entomologist. He was actually from Tufts, so I should remember his name. You might have known him. Um, I can't remember his name right now. Anyways, the title of his talk is "Why is your windshield clean?"
Hmm.
That was
Oh,
the title.
sure.
No insects.
Yeah.
So basically, back in the 1970s and 80s, I used to have to clean my windshield off every couple of days. I never clean my windshield now.
Hmm.
Why? Because we killed all the bugs. There are no bugs in any populated areas anymore. But and a lot of that is light pollution. It's not just insecticide, but the certain insects, like mosquitoes, are attracted to you because you produce infrared light. To them, you're a glowing light bulb. They see infrared. So, and in a hot night, you're especially red hot to them, and that's why they tend to bite a lot. But other insects see in the ultraviolet, some see in different parts of the spectrum, and that's how they're attracted, pollinators, especially to certain plants. For example, certain plants reflect in the infrared, and certain plants reflect in the ultraviolet. So they're very specific for the insect to pollinate them. They see these uh, flowers specifically, they're attuned to them, they evolved with them. But the problem is with indiscriminate light pollution at all spectrums, the insects are being killed off. And even without spraying for insects, and when you kill good and bad insects, you the insects are attracted to lights, and they don't procreate, they don't pollinate, and they tend to just die under the light. And that's a real problem.
We have a question from Suraj.
Yeah, Dr. Mario, thank you so much for amazing presentation. I learned a lot. I have a couple of questions on the like one of the graphs that you show where you are showing the relationship between the melatonin production and the wavelengths. So is it only directly linked to the wavelength, or is there any also correlation with the intensity of the light? So let's say I have like a 2700 K light, but I have multiple of them. Will it affect me more, or more than like 1 4000 K light? That was my first question. And why there is a hint, like from the companies, from the big corporations, why there is a like why they are not ready to shift to 2000 K light if we have like a good research to back the effects of that.
Okay, let me try to take that in steps, and you can ask again if I didn't answer the question. A light of 4,000 K has about 3,000 K, about 21%. It's a range. So 3,000 K light, the way it's manufactured, can be 18 to 24% blue. That's still way too much blue. 2,700 K lights tend to be 15% blue, and anything less than that, it's like 1,800 K, which is the old high pressure sodium, it's very little blue, almost non-existent. For some reason, the lighting industry tried to convince people that they need white light in order to see better at night. It actually doesn't help you at all. It causes glare, and it's been proven to be more dangerous. The proper light for street lights, I mean, if you want to give them a little bit of white, would be around 2,200 to 2,300. That would be perfect in my mind. You wouldn't have any significant blue, which is good for the environment and the insects and humans. But at the same time, gives you very good definition for driving, yet doesn't give you glare. That's really what we should be shooting for. Right now, the lighting industry finally begrudgingly has gone down to 2,700, and that's what's being promoted now, which is a good thing. They're still sticking with 3,000 K for inner cities. As far as the melatonin suppression, there's a book out by Martin Ed called The Light Doctor. He was head of Harvard Medical School's sleep research lab, and he just retired this past year. But he wrote a book called The Light Doctor. You can get it on Amazon. It's great. I've got it. And it was his research that showed it's specifically the wavelength 479 nanometers that causes the problem in the humans. And more specifically, which is I found shocking, it's just 5 centimeters to either side. So if you could filter out from 474 to 484, that 10 nanometer band, even if you have the rest of the blue, you could eliminate most of the suppression of melatonin. It's that specific, because that's what that specific rod in the eye sees. Outside of that, it doesn't see it. So consequently, there is, if you think about it, there's a huge potential here for industry to do the right thing. They could put filters in front of the LEDs that specifically block that 10 nanometers. You'd still have white light, but you wouldn't have the intense melatonin suppression. Okay, but that's book just came out. He just published his research. So if that answers your questions, I'm not sure what else you asked a lot in one.
Yeah, yes, it does answer my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So Patty, you might have the last question.
How exciting. First of all, Mario, thank you. This was absolutely fascinating. And I confess I was talking to you through the whole thing with questions and responses. And Artie actually brought up what I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned all these committees that you've served on and all these committees that exist around the world. And one that really caught my attention was the Committee for the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, which obviously has to do a lot with your light pollution stuff. But I was also thinking about satellites and how insane it is, all the satellites that are out there. And that should certainly be of interest to the United Nations. And I would think something considerate calling itself the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. And I guess my question is this something that could be brought to all of these worldwide committees to say, no, Elon, you can't do this. Nobody owns outer space. But
Yeah.
somebody's got to just smack them on the wrist and say no.
Yeah. Here's the problem. The UN can advise countries. It can't make rules. So every country can make its own rules. And in the current environment, I'm not going to get into politics here, but in the current environment, the current administration will let industry do anything the hell it wants, including burn coal, pollute, take away the Clean Air Act, take away the Clean Water Act. And basically, they're giving Elon a green light. He was limited at 6,000 satellites. Once Trump got in office, he's suddenly up to 9,000. He's shooting up a group of 36 more every couple of weeks. He really wants to hit 54,000. He wants to dominate the internet from space.
Damage be damned.
So this probably won't change until we get a new administration.
We'll pray for that to come.
And
But thank you, Mario. And I also want to just really, really quick thank William Wall for all your chats that you put out there, especially the one responding to me, which I thought was very funny.
Right.
Thank you.
So thank you for
My
those.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Yes,
I,
thank
I
you.
will,
Oh,
I will include the chats as part of the recording.
Please.
Merry Christmas to all. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas to everyone. Yes.
Yes.
See
Happy
you
holidays.
next year.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much,
listening.
Mario.
And Mario, thank you
Merry
so much.
Christmas.
This was brilliant.
Thanks,
Bye,
Bill,
everybody.
as well as Mario. Yep.
Spectacular.
Go
Bye.
well.
Bye, all.
Bye.